You get the big seat, Ralph. Go ahead. Just for that, you got 45 minutes. Go ahead.
I'd just like to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I'm Ralph Hoffman. I'm a member of the greatest generation from, I own a condo in downtown Walnut Creek, 2 blocks from BART. And I'm here representing the Contra Costa Senior Mobility Action Council and also the Contra Costa Spare the Air Resource Team. And I'll be speaking at the TIP meeting in a little while. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Our next speaker is Ron Leone from the Concord City Council. Are we using the microphone?
No, that's all we have.
Oh, we just use this? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for indulging me. I wanted to let you know I spoke before about a couple of issues. One of the issues, actually, I met with the bike ped people, and we actually worked things out, so I'm satisfied with the outcome of that. The other issue that I wanted to address this evening is something I brought up, but I did not express one of the points of concerns that I had. And I want to go back to a white paper that was produced by a couple of consultants for MTC in 2013, Jeff Hobson and Clarissa Cabon-Sagan. I may be butchering her name, but it was called Moving People, Not Just Cars. And in that report, they talk about the expressway, or they call them hot lane system, that they wanted to establish. And it did address the issue of income distribution being disproportionately used by higher income people. Now, it talked about this. It showed a study that they did in Seattle, how the majority of people using the hot lanes or the express lanes were by higher income people. I'm not objecting to that, but one of the things that it talked about was that when you have those types of issues, you should try to mitigate those so that your lower income people are not severely impacted. And perhaps one of the things you might want to do is to include maybe access to those. And I'm going to read you just a very short quote from that. It says, MTC should design and implement mitigations to ensure low-income families receive an equitable share of the benefits and do not bear a disproportionate burden of the hot network. Mitigations may include access to the network itself, as well as transit investments. So this is coming from the MTC report, and what I wanted to do is to give you a copy of not only that statement and show you the disproportionate use of this that they wrote. And it's not the only case study, because I saw others ones. There's one in San Bernardino County on Highway 91. And they also showed the same type of thing, different proportions, but about the same type of thing. But included in that, I wanted to give you an example of the median family income in our county. And thank you.
Ron, rather than go through the whole thing, can you give that information to Randy?
I'm going to give it to you. I've made copies.
Okay, we'll set it up as an agenda item, either PC or APC, and you can discuss it even more than at a public comment where we can't do anything about it.
That would be, I'd be happy to. In fact, I was also going to ask that perhaps we have invite CTA staff, maybe Suzanne Miller, the project director of this project, to the Concord City Council as well, because it's a major concern that we have. But I wanted to share this information with you because of the disproportionate use and misuse, not misuse, I take that back, the impediment that it's going to cause us.
I get
So-
where you're going. Let me just tell you, I can't tell them 3 minutes. Well, I told Ralph 45, but it was.
I understand.
And then not do it, and we can't act on it, as you know. So if you
I
can,
get it.
get the information to Randall, and we will get you agendized on one of our APC or PC meetings.
That I'd be happy to, and I have the information here.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't have any other cards for public comment, so I will close public comment. We're on to the approval of the minutes for March 16th.
Second.
We have a motion from Romick, a second from Pierce. She was really quick. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Seeing none, we're on to the consent calendar, generally considered routine in nature, acted upon with a single motion. Is there anyone up here that would go ahead? Janet, you're first.
Second.
Okay, and then I will ask, is there anyone from the audience that wants to pull any item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, we had a motion from Abelson, a second from Romick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, no abstentions. We're on to the, there's no major discussion items, so it's a regular agenda items. APC did not meet in April, so we're going to take a look at the legislative update. Lindsay, you're going to kick this off?
Yes. Hello. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm just going to give you a very brief federal update because we do have our state advocate, Mark Watts, here tonight to talk a little more what's happening at that level. So I want to give him an opportunity to give that update. At the federal level, just very briefly, an 18-month reauthorization of the FAA bill was just recently passed, and unfortunately it did not include the amendments that we were hoping for to address our concerns about local tax revenue being used for aviation purposes. This is still an item that the Self-Help Counties is working on. They've scheduled a meeting with the FAA next week, so it's not something that has been forgotten or dropped. We're still continuing to work on it. We're a little disappointed with this outcome, but it's still a work in progress. It's also appropriations season in Washington with the FAST Act. Now all of the grant applications are starting to come out, and dollars are becoming available. So we're actually scheduling a trip to go to DC in May to try to capture some of those dollars and bring them back to Contra Costa. So hopefully we'll come back with some good news. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mark Watts, our state advocate, so he can give you an update on what's happening in Sacramento.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, Mark, tell us everything's great.
Well, thank you for giving me the excuse to get out of Sacramento for an evening. I appreciate being here. There's a couple bills I want to bring you up to speed on. The measure by Assemblymember Bonilla, AB 1592, that deals with autonomous vehicles, has moved readily through the process and has cleared the Assembly and is awaiting to be signed in the Senate Rules Committee. So I think we'll see some activity in late May, perhaps, at the way the deadlines are set up. And I'm meeting with the committee consultant next week to kind of give him a brief orientation on the bill. Another measure of that Assemblymember Bonilla is carrying on of interest is the measure that would shift the imposition authority for the sales tax from the county to your entity here. Is scheduled on Monday, April 25th for hearing. We're working on a plan to see if we can get that into effect immediately upon governor's approval, and I'm happy to report I think we made some progress removing the opposition of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. That process is being vetted right now, and once they're out of the way, they were concerned about the extension of the sunset, so I think we're going to relieve their anxiety and move forward with at least their neutrality. I'd also like to mention another bill that we had taken a position on, taken a look at, was AB 1746 by Assemblymember Stone from the Central Coast. This would allow the operation of buses on shoulders, and upon its introduction, it did include authority for that for CTA, but more recent amendments have now allowed LAVTA to be, Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority, to be included with this within the bill, so they would have the authority if the bill were signed by the governor. It has cleared the Assembly on a 76-0 vote and is pending assignment in the Senate as well. It was a relief reading the local press, I can't believe this. It's my kid's high school principal. I think I'll go to the bar before I return that one. Anyway, it was a relief while watching the press coverage of the BART negotiations to see that they had come out with something satisfactory, and I think that helps the ambience for moving forward with your expenditure plan later in the fall. There had been one bill we covered briefly, but we never did take any action on it, but it's no longer going to be viable as of Friday, and that's Assemblymember Baker's bill that dealt with the Altamont Pass JPA for rail. As of this week, it hadn't been heard, and it fails due to deadlines as of Friday. Turning briefly to, and I know you want to get on with this, so I'll be very quick. There are still 3 transportation proposals in play in Sacramento. In play, I guess maybe it's halftime or something, because they're not actually moving very far, very fast. Assemblymember Frazier's AB 1591 provides more than $7 billion annually for transportation purposes. It's viable because it has an urgency clause, so therefore it's not subject to the deadlines, but there's been no recent movement on it. Governor Brown introduced his $3.5 billion proposal in the January budget, and we're trying to figure out what the budget subcommittees are going to do with that. One is inclined not to even hear it because they think it's got too much policy for a budget committee. So we have some work to do to see how that's going to turn out. And finally, Senator Bell's main bill, SBX11, I believe when I wake up tomorrow and check Ledge Info, I will find that it had been amended. It is sitting in the special session Appropriations Committee, and I think he's going to try to generate some interest and support with some of the ideas he has in his bill, but we'll have to wait. It's been next day for the last couple of weeks, so we'll see how that turns out. And with that, I conclude my report.
Okay, any questions? We'll start with Member Pierce and then Peoples.
I just wanted to clarify, Mark, I think the bill that does the bus on shoulder is LAFTA, AC Transit, and 3CTA. My understanding is AC Transit is
Yeah, I left
included.
AC Transit out.
Right. I just wanted to
apologize.
make sure. Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, and I should have had my staff talk to your staff before this. I'd like it if your staff would take a look at SB 1071. It's a Hancock bill I testified on yesterday, passed out of Senate Trans 11-0, but it allows us to give tickets to cars blocking bus stops with cameras in the head signs.
Okay, this actually is an action item, but I think we just put action on in case we want to act. So unless I'm seeing a lot of lights here, we accept the report. We don't even need a motion. We accept the report. Next item is discussion of City of Martinez request for an urban limit line advisory letter. And who's the lucky one? Is that yours, Martin? Engelman will give us a staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Martin Engelman, Deputy Executive Director for Planning at CCTA. And the item before you is regarding a potential Measure J growth management program issue regarding the urban limit line. And as you all know, Measure J growth management program includes an urban limit line provision that requires each local jurisdiction to adopt a voter-approved urban limit line. The authority's ULL policy recognizes that local land use planning is an evolving process and that jurisdictions may seek to annex land from time to time for urban development. And accordingly, Measure J allows adjustments of 30 acres or less without voter approval, and that's something that we evolved from the county's urban limit line provisions. Any changes of the urban limit line of greater than 30 acres requires a vote of the people. The measure further states that if a local jurisdiction attempts to annex land outside of its applicable ULL, it'll be found out of compliance with the Growth Management Program. To help cities address questions regarding the ULL and to avoid potential compliance issues, we want to fix them before they happen. The authority has a standing policy that it offers any local jurisdiction that wants it an opportunity to receive advice on possible ULL decisions. And we currently have at hand a request from the City of Martinez asking advice on a potential annexation. This request and question actually has to do with water provision. And the City of Martinez is a provider of potable water in portions of Martinez and areas outside of the city limits. And the city's been asked to provide a will serve letter for a parcel in the unincorporated Alhambra Valley within the city's sphere of influence. And the parcel is shown on this map. It's the purple parcel there. It's 5.15 acres. And it is in kind of an island of the urban limit line. That whole area with the brown line around it is Contra Costa's urban limit line, and the City of Martinez has adopted that line. Prior to issuing a will serve letter to these property owners who have requested service, the Contra Costa Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, must approve an out-of-agency water service agreement. And the LAFCO board can only approve such an agreement under two scenarios. One, in response to an existing or impending threat to the health or safety of the public, or two, if the affected territory is within the agency's sphere of influence and in anticipation of a later annexation. So clearly here, I don't think we have any impending threat to health or safety, and so the second provision applies. The city desires to eventually annex the entire Alhambra Valley, but the Alhambra Valley is far greater than 30 acres. It's the entire area hash marked there that's not yellow, and the yellow area is the City of Martinez. Such an annexation would require a vote of the people to move the urban limit line first before the annexation took place. But to serve this individual property owner requesting the will serve letter, the movement of the ULL and the future annexation could be less than 30 acres, and therefore it would be feasible for the city to undertake the change while remaining in compliance with the authority's ULL policies. The City of Martinez is requesting that the authority make a policy determination as to whether a proposed action by the city to move its urban limit line and annex the property would result in a compliance issue. And staff has drafted a letter answering the city's questions, and we're asking tonight for your approval to send the letter to the city. I'm just going to quickly show you how the annexation for this property could take place. There are parcels between the city boundary and the parcel in question, and so the annexation could potentially involve these two parcels, which would be a total movement of the urban limit line of 24.6 acres. The issue here is that this creates an island, a new island, two new islands to the south, and one of these islands is less than 30 acres, and we're advising in our letter that if they do move the urban limit line, that they don't create pockets, that they don't create situations where there'd be a great temptation to come back later and fill that pocket. The other angle to come from this so that we can get an annexation that abuts to the property, to the City of Martinez's boundary, would be to come from the north, and there's a property here that connects, and then also this property is actually the same landowner. This movement of the urban limit line would create an island to the north, which is greater than 30 acres, and the island to the south exists, and it is also greater than 30 acres. We are not advising the city at this point exactly how they would go about this ULL change. They could even come out and move their urban limit line, crossing boundaries, crossing parcels, which is probably not advisable. But there are several ways to do this, and essentially what we're saying to the city is, since they don't have conditions, you're probably familiar, the county has 7 conditions, that at least there needs to be at least one finding that one of the 7 conditions holds. And in the case of the city of Martinez, they have not adopted those conditions. So as of today, the city could move their urban limit line to include this parcel. The letter is in your packet. I just let you know that the planning committee asked us to prepare that letter. The planning committee did not review the letter before it came here, so it's before you. We were directed to prepare the letter and send it to you tonight for your approval. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Again, the question is, do we send this letter to Martinez? And there are questions for staff, starting with Member Duran.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was confused in the packet when this was in black and white, and I was hoping it was going to be more clear in the color version. But the line that goes sort of up along the north side under the word City of Martinez and then drops down, that looks to me like it's designated on here as the Contra Costa County urban limit line, but so too does the brown line further to the east. So, and then there's this sort of the dotted black line that's the City of Martinez. So I'm trying to figure out how to orient to this compared to the sphere of influence color.
So all of this hashed area here,
Yep.
this entire area, is within the Martinez sphere of influence.
Right.
It's all within the Martinez sphere of influence.
It's the
area
two sets
to
of brown
the-
lines that I'm concerned about,
yeah,
just so you understand.
The area to the east of this funny looking, looks like a dragon's head, I guess.
Yeah.
This area to the east is unincorporated county area that is within the urban limit line. So this is within the urban limit line, and you know, you'd think the easy way to do this would be for the county to move the urban limit line like this and incorporate that parcel. But the county has, at this point, the county has 7 provisions, and none of those 7 provisions are met. So the alternative is to come from the west, and coming from the west, then the City of Martinez could potentially move its urban limit line like this, and then all of this area would eventually be annexed into the city. And as of today, the City of Martinez does not have provisions that need to be, they don't have to make a findings to move it. This would be a movement of less than 30 acres. And as a growth management agency, they're just asking us, can we move the line? And we're saying, yes, you can, provided it's less than 30 acres and provided it doesn't create pockets and provided it's non-consecutive and non-sequential. And all of those provisions are in the letter.
Yeah, no, and I understood all of that, and I understand that if we were to go ahead and send the letter in there to go ahead and entertain this, they still have to go to get LAFCO's concurrence to do what they're going to do and all that. I'm going to go to the screen here because my question's actually a whole lot simpler than the one you were just answering.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So you've got 2 brown lines. One here, right? And then this other one that sort of comes around this way. And then you've got the city line here. What I'm trying to do is, I'm assuming that this black dashed line probably covers all the way up to there and across here, since that's all in yellow. That's all the City of Martinez.
That's correct.
Is all of this today, I think, is outside the urban limit line, but based on the color chart here, it looks like we're saying it's inside the urban limit line, just based on how this is drawn. So I'm just trying to get clarity. My guess is this is actually the county urban limit line here.
That's the county urban limit line, right. And so for the city of Martinez, Their urban limit line is the one that abuts the city boundary on the west side.
Right. So everything inside that brown shape is outside the urban limit line?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's unincorporated county outside the urban limit line.
Okay. Yeah, so ultimately, Martinez still has to go through what they have to go through with LAFCO before they're ever going to be able to do anything with it, regardless of what we do today with the letter.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Pierce?
Yeah, I think the letter is fine. I think the city is going to have to find its way through LAFCO. As far as I can see, it meets all of our requirements. The caution we might give them, but I don't want to presume for LAFCO. I would assume that this creates a bit of a cherry stem, but that would be for LAFCO to decide. Technically, it meets our criteria. The logical thing is for them to annex directly into the county to their area. That would seem to me to be far more accessible, too, for their purposes of getting water, but I don't know where the pipelines run, obviously. So I would say we send the letter and say good luck with LAFCO.
Member Arnrich?
Thank you. I was just going to say a little bit kind of what Julie's saying, but in a different way. I don't actually think we should be sending a letter yet. And the reason why is it looks like the purpose is they're trying to show support. Their underlying question, they know the answer is, does this affect your return to source funding? And the reason why we shouldn't send a letter, if they submit a diagram, Martin, you were showing solutions, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I would pick one that would make it harder for them to subdivide later, and you showed your last diagram was that way. But we shouldn't be responding to something that's a fishing expedition. We should respond to something that's finite. They say, this is what we're proposing. Because if that's all they're proposing, I don't think they can do that. And for technical reasons through LAFCO, because it's not contiguous to them, they can't act on something that's not part of theirs. They can't unilaterally. It'd have to be next to their city limits, in my personal view. But I don't think we should send this letter because they haven't submitted unless you can change what you're saying. Because you were putting together diagrams there. They're not their diagrams. Until such time they say, this is what we propose, this is what's going to LAFCO, we can then, and it would be our obligation, to respond to that to say you were either in compliance or not based on that diagram. But until they do that, this is a fishing expedition, and we should not be used as part of that because it might make LAFCO think, oh, yeah, they're fine with it. We're not, because we don't have a diagram in front of us yet.
Okay. I don't see any other lights. We have one. You're the winner.
I just want to say I'm with Newell. I think he's got it. He's got the right idea. We're not compelled to respond to this, right? We can, but we're not compelled to.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
We actually have a policy that says if you ask, we will respond. And we can respond any way you want, but we have committed to responding to requests for policy advisory letter.
Well, we could ask for more information.
And we could certainly ask for more information.
We could deem this as an incomplete application, so to speak.
Yeah, so I guess if that's the context, I would say my recommendation in a motion would be to say, at this time, until you determine the exact shape, size, parcel, the exact configuration of which you propose to submit to LAFCO, we cannot respond at this time.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to not send the letter. Is that what it is?
No, to send a letter, not this letter, to send a letter that says we cannot make a determination on what you're proposing until it's further defined. It is not a finite diagram at this time. And at such time that they have a diagram of which they are going to propose to submit to LAFCO, which would be the legal document to make that transfer, we're not in a position to be able to make a comment on it because it's too loosely defined at this point.
Mr. Tatson.
If I could just add, one is, from a LAFCO perspective, LAFCO has and does approve out-of-agency service agreements that are not contiguous to a jurisdiction's border. And we do so when there's either a health and safety reason or when there's a pre-annexation agreement. My concerns about some of the diagrams that were shown today is that typically LAFCO tries, in terms of looking at future annexations, doesn't look just at what's close to the existing boundary, but also considers access. It is not clear to me that you would access this parcel through the parcels that are further to the left that were shown today. My assumption is you would probably access this parcel off something close to Gordon Way.
You're talking about water access?
No, road access.
Road access, I believe, would come through the parcels to the south. But
Question of staff.
Okay.
Do we have the original letter from the city of Martinez, or am I just missing it?
yes, we do. It's in the planning committee packet.
Ah, gotcha.
There are 5 attachments in the planning committee package.
Okay.
Keep going.
But I guess my sense is, it's useful for us to provide information that LAFCO will require. It is difficult for us to anticipate what LAFCO will do.
Okay, let me see if I can wrap this up a little bit. There was a request from the city of, I'm going to get to that in a minute too. I was going to ask if there are public speakers. There was a request from the city to get information. The staff responded to the city, and the motion that's before us is that we shouldn't respond until there is a specific in front of us. Specific what? I'm not sure what we call it. I would make this, I see a bunch of lights going on. Do you want to wait until the public speaker speaks, or do you want to? Okay. Same? All right. Who do we have speaking, Darren? Or you didn't turn in?
We have a public speaker. I think if we could allow him to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Please, after you're through, just fill it out. Jump right up here.
Good evening, Chair. I'm Tim Tucker, the city engineer for the city of Martinez, and I think Martin is showing probably more of a roadmap than the city is looking for, that you kind of picked up on, but he provided, I think in his letter, a lot of the information that the city needs to move forward to, and it's primarily if we provide water to this parcel that's outside of the urban limit line, would that jeopardize our return to source funds? And I think that that's a very clear question, and I think it's a clear answer in his draft letters saying yes, it is. That the city can only really supply water to areas within its jurisdictional boundaries that are outside the urban limit, that are outside the, or within the urban limit line. So I think his letter might be fine. I think some of what we expunged on a little bit tonight, we don't need that information. We can come to some of these own conclusions on ourselves. We just want to really know if we provide water to a parcel outside the urban limit line, is our return to source funds in jeopardy? And I think Martin's letter does that very clearly.
Okay. Did you have a question of the speaker? No. Okay. We have one other. I'm going to try. John Milliken? Milliken. Okay.
We are, in fact, the property owners. This whole development was done by my grandfather, and Gordon Way is named after him. And to answer your question about access to the property, we have an easement off of Milliken Court via the property that my grandfather built his home on and is currently owned by the Halls. Milliken Court is south on that, if I may. Also, I apologize for my informal apparel, but I was running short on time. Milliken Court is right here, and we have access up through in that manner. The easements that were put in by my grandfather. By the way, who's the second owner of that property? Yes. Yes. Okay. If you have any other questions about the property, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. There any other speakers? That's it? Okay, thank you. You're up, Mr. Durant. You were first.
Okay, thanks.
And you,
I think the real core, based on the letter from Martinez, is prepared to go forward. It looks like with what it needs to do. It's recognized that it has two conditions under which it would be able to go forward. First is if LAFCO approves the out-of-agency water services agreement, and second is if they have clarity that they're not at risk for losing their return to source fund. So it seems to me it's a legitimate question to come to us based on our policy of answering questions when people have presented them. So fundamentally, I think I would offer a substitute motion that we approve the letter with one clarifying sentence that by issuing an opinion as to the potential for losing return to source, that we're not rendering an opinion about the advisability, desirability, or any approval by CCTA to move forward with any action. So that I would just make that as a substitute motion.
do I have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion, substitute motion. Durant, second. Mitchoff. Discussion. I saw that light go up real quick, Mr. Heinrich.
I was just going to say, there's two questions, but the city's only asking one, and I get why they're only asking it, narrow it. Our role is growth management. They're only asking the question about the water, but it's got to be under a 30-acre. They're really, if you read their letter, it's one question they're asking. It's not the right question. That's part of it. We can answer that. That's pretty straightforward. But we can't answer whether or not this move complies with our growth management in terms of all the compliance, in terms of a 30-acre exception. They're asking just singularly, does asking for water on this parcel violate that? And the answer is no. Doesn't ask the other question is, does doing this action of a 30-acre exception under these conditions, forget about the water, that question's answered. And my point is we can't answer that. They're not asking it, but that's our responsibility until we see an actual diagram. And to do it ahead of time is kind of like giving a blank check, and then it runs away, and then we're on the hook to sort of implying that the whole transaction, answering water, yeah. However, you'd have to say then clearly, we are not weighing in, nor can we at this time, on this 30-acre exception as it relates to our other growth, underlying growth management issue, because we don't see a diagram. I mean, you can't. Simple as that. We can answer the water, but we can't answer the other question. They don't want us to answer that other question. We need to answer that. So I'm saying, if you're going to go for a second, please clarify your motion that we are not clearly. We were only answering the question about water, and we are not addressing whether or not the transaction of a 30-acre or less exception, without talking about water, if that's acceptable, because we don't know the answer to that until we see a diagram.
Seeing no other lights, the substitute motion is before us first. And I would just ask, anybody need it to be repeated? Essentially the letter plus all the added things Member Durant put in there. So the question before us is, how do you vote on the substitute motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. We got 2 noes, and I'm trying to think, is it just 9 of us? Are we all here? And 9 yeses. Okay. Motion passes.
If we could just clarify who the noes are for the record.
Okay, the movers of the original motion, okay, and the second. All right, that brings us to the correspondence and communications. You have a letter before us from the City of San Ramon dated March 23rd. I also received a late letter that I don't have in front of you. I will take this up with after the meeting. Next thing we have is the associate committee reports. I'm looking around to see if there's any lights.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I know the letter, you're saying you're going to take it up with staff afterwards?
Yes.
Do you want to make a record of what the letter is?
I have a letter, okay. I don't even have it came late. I have a letter from the Board of Supervisors addressed to me, rotation of authority, chair and vice chair. Without reading the whole thing, it's the Board of Supervisors are asking us to consider the authority to consider the rotation of chair and vice chair of the entire authority. That's the way I'm reading it right now. I'll have to get into it. At the earliest convenience. I don't have a copy to send to anybody, so I assume we're not going to discuss it tonight. But that...
Shouldn't it be referred to a committee? Or how we gonna-
That's what I'm going to ask them, how we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Because I'm assuming the RTPCs are going to want to get a copy of it also. So moving ahead for right now, Associated Committee reports, I don't see any lights on for that. The chair comments and reports. I do have something to report tonight. If I can read, we are so proud to have our executive director named one of the top 10 public sector innovators in the nation by the Enos Center for Transportation. This is so prestigious, we're going to have him later tell us what Eno is. This is highly prestigious. This is a highly prestigious award for which Randy is uniquely qualified. Other award winners who are fortunate enough to be named along with Randy are the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Anthony Fox, and Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. Congratulations, Mr. Iwasaki. Okay, we have comments from, before we move on to the next item, Member Pierce.
Yeah, I need to report out that as your delegate to the California Council of Governments and as the now immediate past chair, I attended the CalCog Regional Issues Forum in Monterey on your behalf. We had some lively discussions about how CalCog can become even more effective in pulling together the councils of government and the transportation authorities, the CMAs around the state. We now have upwards of 45 members in the organization, and it's a lot of movers and shakers. We had some exciting presentations, including one about another form of high-speed transit. It's pretty exciting to see what's going on in the spirit of innovation around our state. So it was very, very well attended and lots of exciting ideas, but I just wanted to report out that I did attend that on your behalf, and the new chair is now from Southern California. I did serve there for about 2 years, which is rather unusual, but anyway, so.
Member Tatson?
So if I can put my LAFCO hat on, several months ago I reported that LAFCO is preparing an agricultural and open space policy. Since then, we have concluded that our approach will be to have a policy that basically asks applicants who want to either annex or put in their spheres agricultural land and open space land as defined by state law, which does not mean it's just a vacant parcel, that they complete an impact assessment of that proposal. And so any jurisdiction that now has a new annexation or sphere of influence proposal has to complete an impact assessment. It asks questions like, what's the effect on existing agriculture? What mitigations, if any, are you proposing? How does this help facilitate LAFCO's goal of facilitating orderly development while preserving ag and open space land, et cetera? So we've now moved on that we have a draft policy which is really organized around that approach, and it has a series of goals and policies which I won't go into tonight. But if the authority is interested in taking a position or individual commissioners are interested in taking a position, this would be a good time to speak up. We have gotten so far 2 comment letters, and we've been promised a third, and we actually had a pretty good discussion at the Special Districts Association last Friday.
Okay, further comments or reports from my right? From my left? Seeing none. Executive staff time.
Commissioners, I do know what the Enos Center is. It's the Center for Transportation. It's a neutral, nonpartisan think tank that promotes policy innovation and provides professional development opportunities across the career span of transportation professionals. But I would really be remiss if I didn't recognize the team that we all are blessed with here. Sometimes as we work to try to provide opportunities for everybody in transportation in Contra Costa County, we are doing great things and we don't even realize it. And so I appreciate whoever nominated me, and probably is Lindsay, and and others, so thank you. But the team here really is I'm very proud of the work that we do on a daily basis, so I just wanted to recognize them. So I may get the name recognition there, but it's really a Contra Costa Transportation Authority award, and it really kind of involves you. And I've said this over and over again as I speak around the country that, we wouldn't do half the things that we do because if we didn't have your support. We're not a staff-run organization. We're really a board-run organization. We bring these ideas to you. We listen to what you have to say, and then we follow up on the direction. So I don't ever think that that's just about me, but I appreciate the accolades, and I appreciate the nomination. So I'm going to go real quick. I've got a presentation. I want to go through real quick some of the things that were done this last month in my director's report, and I apologize to all of you that want to talk about the TEP. But I did get invited to Oregon, gave a speech to the Oregon Transportation Commission. They want to know what we're doing as far as trying to model against future technologies and how it's going to affect the transportation system in the future and what should they be preparing for. So I did a presentation that is much like, it's a little bit longer than this one, and we'll run you through that. I'm very proud of Ivan Ramirez. Ivan actually addressed the parents of the children that go to the Riverside Elementary School that is right alongside. It's actually at the touchdown point of bent number 4 or bent number 7, one or the other. I can't remember which bent column foundation, and address their questions in both English and Spanish. And so many of the students' parents don't speak English, and so he was able to communicate with them and talk about the project. And so much so that the kids now, the idea is to host, as they're building the column, to have a classroom outdoors and let the kids get exposed as they build infrastructure. And so Ivan and others will be there to make sure they answer these kids' questions. So that's our attempt to get our children of Contra Costa engaged in the STEM program. And so I want to thank Ivan. Although he's employee number 20, he's still number 1 in our hearts, wherever he is. So he's back there, okay. I gave a speech at National County Association of Counties in Berkeley, got invited to go to some place called Iowa City, not really sure where that is. But they want to know about autonomous vehicles, connected vehicle, first and last mile, and I'll talk a little bit about there. They were excited about that. Supervisor Joya was there. He said, that's the county that I work in. So I must have done okay. We had a groundbreaking at San Pablo Dam Road. It's been a long, Hisham was 4 when he started. He's now 30 or something, 30 years old, Hisham. So he's done a great job. He's really stayed with it, and we're building that new infrastructure along 80, getting ready for an ultimate widening and auxiliary lane on 80. Presented to the Assembly Trans Committee on the AB 1592, no driver, no steering wheel, no brake pedal. We got that out of that committee 16-0, and it left the Assembly floor. I think the ultimate vote was 76-0. It's going to as Mark Watt said, it's going to the Senate side. We spoke at an event for Congressman Lipinski. Congressman Daniel Lipinski got his master's degree at Stanford University in mechanical engineering, decided he wanted to be a politician, got his PhD at Duke. And he's one of 12 engineers in Congress, and we were invited to speak at their roundtable event in San Francisco, and I think we were the only public sector agency other than Caltrans, and he was so excited about our presentation, his staff asked, could we support a roundtable? So we had a number of private sector and public sector agencies here, and we got to address both Congressman Lipinski and Congressman DeSaulnier. Congressman DeSaulnier said, I have to leave before noon. This thing was going to end at 1. So I put him up first. I said, absolutely, Congressman. He never left the event. He stayed there, and now they're going to host another event with Congressman Swalwell and Congresswoman Lee somewhere in Berkeley, I think. So we're invited to that as well. So that's kind of my executive director's report. I wanted to give you a quick briefing on Gomentum Station, the connected vehicle, autonomous vehicle program, if that'd be okay. Okay? All right, So you know who we are. These are some of the things that we're working on in Contra Costa County. Smart Corridor, Interstate 80, charging systems. We're trying to make sure that, we get to that zero emission vehicle penetration point. You need charging systems, or you're going to need hydrogen fueling facilities, however you do it. But the zero emission vehicle is how you're going to get that 80% reduction by the year 2050. And so we're moving forward on that. We've got an ICM program that includes Interstate 80, but also we were the applicant for the ICM project in State Route 4, and so that was approved, one of 13 agencies in the United States to get that grant, one of the grants. We got a $200,000 grant, and we're working on now trying to ensure that the $1.3 billion that are invested on State Route 4 we're going to continue to enjoy those benefits into the future because we're concerned about as population grows, you're going to get more demand, and your commute along that four corridors is going to get worse. And so we're trying to make sure that we use technology to continue the benefits. And we'll talk more in depth with the CV, the Connected Vehicle Autonomous Vehicle Program. So Gomentum Station is a connected vehicle, autonomous vehicle. It's the largest secure autonomous vehicle test facility in the United States. It's 5,000 acres. It's a place where we want to build convergence of innovation, commercialization of CV applications and autonomous vehicle technologies that will take place in the largest test bed in the world. It's the Naval Weapons Station, 5,000 acres. We have a license to test on 2,100 of those 5,000 acres. It's about the fifth the size of San Francisco. It's got 20 miles of roadway. It's got Bunker City. The idea in Bunker City, which is there on the left, is that those lanes are about, the roadway is about 1.8 miles on tangent or a straight line, and it's got 90-degree intersections. We can actually create an international zone. So we can have left-hand drive, right-hand drive, so the car manufacturers don't have to go to Europe or to Asia to test those vehicles. They can test them right here in Concord. And the idea is to create smart jobs here in Concord. The other issue is on the far left-hand side, Concord High School is there. And we want to engage the high school through the UTC, the University Transportation Center program, and the FAST Act, which creates university transportation centers across the United States, UC Berkeley being one of them. Make that connection and get those kids excited about technology. There's 1,400-foot-long tunnels. These would cost a fortune if you try to mock them up, but you lose GPS signal in there. You lose all signals in there. So how does the autonomous vehicle, how do they operate in that kind of atmosphere or environment? Undercrossings, you don't have to build bridges. They're already built. This is a platform for transforming the future, and we're excited about that. It's the Center of Innovation, largest test bed in the United States, and so this is what we're trying to do. Once again, I was asked by then Supervisor Bonilla to try to create smart jobs when the weapons station was redeveloped, and I took a look, and it was an amazing facility. So part of this initiative is job growth, and I'm not sure if I have individual slides on those. No, I don't. So job growth. Efficient mobility is the idea is that if cars refuse to crash, you're going to get a more efficient, more reliable transportation system because about 50% of the congestion is caused by non-recurrent conditions, weather, Super Bowls, World Series, and if we're lucky, and ultimately crashes. So if we can reduce accidents, we can increase the efficiency of our transportation system ultimately. And if they follow closer, you don't have to build as much pavement. And you may be able to use different parts of the pavement to run traffic. So you may be able to use shoulders because that's not going to have to be a refuge area anymore. Enhanced safety. If cars refuse to crash, you're going to save a lot of money, a lot of lives, and that's very important to any transportation owner. And if the cars are efficient and if they're zero-emission vehicles, you can get to 80% reduction of greenhouse gases by the year 2050. Our model shows 58% penetration rate. CARB, I think, is 87% by 2050. Sandag used 80%. We're using 58%. We think we can get to 80% according to the models. These are some. Every car manufacturer is 39 miles or less to the south of us. And so we want to keep those jobs, the testing in California. That's what we're trying to do here at the authority. I'm not sure what the state is doing right now, but we're going to work with, hopefully, with the state in the future to keep those jobs here in California. Other tech giants, so you got Apple. The other one we could add here is we talked to Lyft today. We're looking at a real-time ride-sharing program with Lyft using Lyft lines. So if you get off the BART train and you need to go to the same place, you'll have cars there. So we're trying to figure out how do you incentivize and make it easier to use transit. And then you have the first-tier suppliers. Those are the manufacturers that don't build the cars but build the electronics. So there's a lot of jobs in this area, a number of vendors. So here's a month-to-month presentation on the progress. The first, we announced our partnership first with you, but next we went to the Transportation Research Board's annual meeting. Ross, Lindsay, and I made the announcement along with Habib Shamsku from Stantec, and we had over 100 people there excited about that program in California. We had the summit last year. We thought we were lucky if we got 100. We had over 300 people from all over the world at this event in Concord. So it was a very exciting time. Many of you participated, and thank you for that. In April, we have a lot of interest, so we're trying to build a program, and the process has taught me patience. It's not an easy process because, different manufacturers want different agreements, and it's very, very difficult. And so if you're not patient, your hair gets gray. Not like mine. May 2015, we announced a partnership with the city of Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek is a very innovative city. They have a connected signal program with a company called Enlighten. Matt Ginsberg, I met him a few years ago. He has an app that when you hold your smartphone upright, it will give you signal phase and timing information. For example, you're stopped at one of the 100 signals in Walnut Creek, and it will count down the red phase so that you're aware when you're doing your hair or whatever you're doing or looking at something, you know that you're going to have to go on 15, 14, 13, 12. So it counts down. Likewise on the green, we don't recommend that you try to run the green light because you know how long the green phase is going to be there, but that signal phasing timing information is important. Why? Because it proves you can get that information out of that traffic controller box into a car. Whoops. July, we signed an MOU with our most important partner, the City of Concord. They've gone through the Navy with us, and we've got a permit to start testing. So the San Jose Mercury News announced on July 8th that we had this agreement. Once again, in the city of Walnut Creek, they bought 2 Arata radios. They're dedicated short-range communication radios. They're short-range, but they're low latency, meaning they don't drop calls. And so this is for safety vehicle-to-infrastructure communication, supplying information to the infrastructure. They supply information about signal phase and timing, make the intersections more efficient, most importantly, most safer. And so if there's nobody around in the future and you're the only car there, you won't have to stop at a red light. And so that demonstration is being deployed now. The other problem we had is we had to go through the Army property initially, and as the bases in America were attacked, the Army went to threat level Bravo, which made it very difficult to get foreign nationals into the military base. The problem there is most of the experts are from somewhere else, not from the United States. So we decided to move the access to where it used to be many years ago, off of Willow Pass Road. The design is there. In September 2015, Jack Hall and I had a conversation with a reporter, and Lindsay was on vacation that day. She hasn't gone on vacation since. We told the reporter that, because this is the CPRA, the Public Records Request Act, asked for all the emails, so we provided about 10,000 emails of anything that said Apple, Gomentum, autonomous vehicle. One of the emails said that we met with Apple, and they put 1 and 1 together, got 3, and they said that confirms that Apple is building a self-driving car. We were inundated with calls from all over the world. The good news there is Lindsay hasn't been on vacation since, and we got $18 million worth of coverage, media coverage. The bad news is she won't let us talk to the media without her anymore. Is she here, by the way? No, she's not. Okay, good. October 2015, we signed an exclusive agreement for North America with a self-driving vehicle. This is a fully autonomous. In order to operate this, it requires AB 1592. There's no driver, there's no steering wheel, and there's no brake pedal. Ligier Motors builds this car or vehicle, and Robosoft, a French company, both are French companies, build the software. I asked Francois Ligier, in order to meet our requirements of current law, can you put a steering wheel in that vehicle? His response was, why would I put a steering wheel in a vehicle that drives itself? So basically the answer was no. So we announced this agreement, and the idea is to test at Gomentum Station in a secure location, making sure that the sensor, the software, all the hardware all works together, and then we're going to roll it out at Bishop Ranch. And the idea there is currently, many years ago, Alex Marin funded buses to bring his workers from the Dublin BART station and Walnut Creek BART station to the Bishop Ranch. The problem is those big buses have to weave throughout that 600 acres and drop passengers off. So if you're the last one off the bus, you might be late for work. So the idea now is, why not just drop everybody off at one location and send them out to their job site using driverless shuttles? But you have to cross the street. And if you cross the street, you have to meet the requirements of the Department of Motor Vehicles, so that's why AB 1592 is so important. Honda is testing out there. They're testing their first generation and now their second generation autonomous Acura. It's an RL. It's a very nice car. Congressman Lipinski took a ride in. He's very excited. Hopefully he'll have another roundtable and send some federal money to Contra Costa Transportation Authority in the future. January 16th, Jack Hall said, victory is here. We finished the gate along with the City of Concord. Great partnership once again. And now we have access right into the Navy facility, not through the Army, into the Navy facility, so foreign nationals can come and test. So we're getting more excitement. There's a couple automobile manufacturers that are excited about testing there, and so we're trying to formalize those agreements. Shared Autonomous Vehicle Program, this is an EZ10, Easy Mile. It's been deployed in 5 other countries. So we're not the first country, we're the 6th country. It's Switzerland, France. It's actually running on public roads in the Netherlands, it's in Italy, and it's in Singapore. We just signed 2 days ago an agreement with Singapore to do research together to collaborate on the results of this program. It's a 3-year test program, about $5 million estimate. We're working with Assembly Member Bonilla to try to get a carve out of the budget, state budget, in order to fund this testing, to keep the testing once again in California. Phase 1, as I mentioned before, sorry, Bob, I'm just double, but it's going to be tested here. So, when the person from the union got up and said, whoa, Nelly, this is unsafe, you're going to run people over. No, the point is we're going to do all that testing in a secure location, and then we'll bring it out for testing with real live people, cars, and those kinds of things at Bishop Ranch. And there's the second phase, is out at Bishop Ranch. 2 main parking lots. Technically, we don't need AB 1592 at the time, but when you spread it out and you cross one street, you're in violation. Much like golf courses in some area where the back 9 is on one side of the highway and the front 9 is on the other, you need special legislation for that golf cart to pass on that state highway. Otherwise, the California Highway Patrol will give you a ticket. And that's happened before. And then phase 3 is a feeder system for BART and or our bus rapid transit of the future. So we see this as a great opportunity, and we're excited about that. We also we created a nonprofit because of the massive number of Information Act requests. And now that we're getting public sector dollars, we've got an investment from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or we will, and we've got an investment from our partners at BART. We're thinking it's probably better to take the dollars in, and then we're under your review, and we can make sure that we're all under the right umbrella. So, but we've created a nonprofit just in case, and so I think we're going to end up coming back here, and then we'll have to give you more updates. And I apologize for the lateness of this one, but we'll get you more involved in this program. 3-year program. The budget for Gomentum Station testing is another $21 million. That's just an estimate, but you have to make roadway repairs and things like that. So the total ask will be $26 million. And really, it boils down to there's an article about Randy Iwasaki against the senator or congressperson and the governor of Michigan because they really want this testing. And so they say their potholes is better, and they have 4 seasons. I say test in the winter. We don't have snow, but we have everything else. And our summit is tomorrow. If you're interested, if anybody in the audience is interested, it's at the Concord Hilton tomorrow. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Member Mitchell.
Thank you. Randy, I appreciate that you want to do the outreach to Concord High School, but I think it's important to go out to all the high schools in the central county area to offer that to all of them. And I work with the school district or however, but I wouldn't limit it to just Concord High School, even though it abuts the district. Others, I don't want to take the opportunity away from other students who may want to be there.
Yeah, my mistake. That's absolutely correct. What my focus is that Concord High is right on the fence. But we have talked to State Superintendent Tom Torkson, I think that's his title. And so he wants to help us make sure that we have a connection with all the high schools as much as we possibly can, get the kids excited about robotics, automation, hopefully civil engineering, those kinds of things. So yes, absolutely.
That's just it. So at least they're aware of it. I'm dating myself, but back when I graduated from high school, I actually went to College Park High School, but went over to Mount Diablo High School for a program that was district-wide. So they've got a model.
Okay. That good? That concludes that. Don, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to take Commissioner Mitchell's comment with which I concur and just suggest we do it for high schools countywide.
Yeah. I'll leave it at this. I'm going to discuss that with Randy. When you have this presentation as you have now, I would like to as soon as we open up the new city halls, do this with our AV so that it's online for anybody that wants to take it, if you take on that challenge. Our next item is calendar. 8.1, comments, questions. 8.2, comments, questions. Seeing none, we are adjourned to Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m. The Transportation Expenditure Plan meeting will start as soon as Don switches his name tag. We're adjourned.